back, everybody. Long time no see. I know it's been a really long time since I've done a video, but I've still been working on the bike. But the biggest problem I had was I do all these videos with my phone, and my phone was somehow, the storage was full and it wouldn't let me take videos. I could only take like a picture, and then I would have to delete it to have space for another picture. So I was monkeying with my phone, and I really didn't feel like taking it in somewhere and have someone try to explain to me what needed to be done to free up storage, because all of a sudden it was just full. And it was like 65 gigabytes available, or it's capable of 65 gigabytes. It had 64.8 used, so every time I took like a picture or a video, it would just automatically say my storage was full. It wouldn't let me do anything. I couldn't edit nothing. It like disabled other features. So it's just kind of a mess I've been dealing with for a few weeks, trying to figure out why the only thing I could use my phone for was basically making phone calls, and who does that? But I figured it out, and I freed up half of the storage space so I can actually start making videos again. So with that said, I have still been working on the bike. No major heavy fabrication stuff going on, just a lot of like detail work and tuning. Just trying to get all the bugs figured out, like idle, two-step, just that starting, cold start, even with the methanol. Just trying to get that all sorted out so that I don't waste a trip to the track. I get down there and I still have to figure out how to get the thing to start, and I won't go on the two-step, so why bother even staging the bike? So that's what I've been working on in the garage, aside from trying to do house projects, mowing yards, and just keeping other things functional on the farm here. But yeah, so I'm gonna put a battery in this thing, and then I'm gonna do a little cold start, and I'll show you that it's only like 41 degrees outside right now and rain, but I'll do a little cold start, show you like how the tune has been going, and then maybe a couple other little things I've been changing on the bike. But let's get going and putting some batteries in it. So if you haven't seen the other video where I talk about these batteries, they are indeed RC car batteries, 14.8 volt. I run 2 of them. Slip right in there. Get my hand out of the way, but strap them down, plug them in. Just like that. So I'll get the thing fired up. Before I fire it up, I want to show you one thing that I did build. So on the return side, so the fuel returns into the regulator here and then dumps it into the tank. When I built the tank, I forgot to make a standoff on the inside of the tank for the fuel where it runs back, that it would actually run fuel into the bottom of the tank, or at least into the fuel that's already in the tank, so it's not just like splattering and spraying everywhere. So what I did is I actually made another, get the cap off here, and you can kind of see in there, I made a standoff, sort of like a diffuser, that the fuel returns through that tube, and then that tube is actually, the fuel is clear, but that tube is actually submerged in fuel right now. So when the fuel's returning through the regulator, it just it softly comes out into the fuel that's already in there and doesn't create a bunch of, well, it's still a little bit of disturbance, but it doesn't create a bunch of splatter and spray, and it's not splashing all over the place. Before I had that in there, if I have the bike running and the cap was off, the fuel comes back at such a high volume that it would splatter all over, and fuel would actually splash out of the cap. Now everything comes back nice and soft, I guess, so that when the fuel's returning, if a cap is off, not that I would run it with the cap off a lot anyways, but just it shows you how much disturbance is going on. So now when it's returning, you can still see through the fuel. It's just kind of bubbling around that return a little bit. So just a little bit to calm things down inside the fuel cell. So what I'll do is I'm going to turn the bike on, and then you'll be able to see the actual like coolant temp, air temp sensors will all read roughly what the air temperature is in the garage. I'll get the glare off here. So you can see it says engine coolant temp is 55 degrees, and intake air temp says 48 degrees. So it's probably around 50 degrees in the garage or so right now, give or take. But I don't run coolant in the bike, so the engine coolant temp is basically like an air temp inside the cylinder. And then the intake air temp sensor is inside the aluminum plenum. So it's probably the discrepancy between the two. But what I'll do is, right now I have data shows 0.0% used. what I'm going to do is start a data log, and I'm going to start the bike. And this is how I've been working on getting my tune figured out. And then I'll let it run, get the oxygen sensor warmed up. You can see right now it says high, so oxygen sensor's ready to go. And then yeah, I'll let it run for a little bit, and then I'll take the data log, and then we'll go work it out on the laptop, and I'll show you what I've been doing over there. So we'll get her fired up. And I can only let it run for a little bit because I'm in a garage that's closed, and methanol stinks bad. Okay, so that's enough running it for now. I know the bike is still relatively cold. It really won't build heat running on methanol. It won't build, well, it will, just it won't build heat real fast. But this is what I'm trying to work on, is some of the cold start stuff. You can see it took me 2 tries cranking to get it fire. This is the coldest I've tried to start it. We've had some pretty warm days already, and it fires right up. So what I'm gonna do now is work on some of the intake air temp compensations and engine coolant temp compensations that go on. And I'll probably fatten them up a little bit because it did fire when I just touched the throttle a little bit. Because when it fired up and then it idled fine, everything kind of took over. You can see the O2, what that was reading, and you can see the correction that was going on. It said minus 75%. So that tells me I'm gonna have to go in and make a correction roughly in those spots in the map, pull fuel out. It should idle closer to, the correction should be, if I shoot for like 10% or less is good for like at idle. But these bikes, there's just so much going on that you can't really have a target air fuel that's good for every condition. You kind of just have to shoot for, give the bike what it wants and figure out a reason later. So if it wants to run good and clean at, say, whatever, 3.9, that's where it's going to run. If it doesn't like that, that's too fat, and it wants to be closer to like 4 or 6 or something, that's where it's going to run. So I'm not going to worry too much about the compensation at idle. I'd like to get that limit down a little bit so that it's not working so hard. It's like if the O2 was to go bad, I don't want it to go throw things way out of whack. So I want the base map to be somewhat close, but what it's going to be, not sure yet. It seems to pretty much like around 4.0 at idle-ish, 4.2, somewhere like that. So I might shoot for that as to be like my idle target. But for now, I'm going to download that data log over to that laptop, which isn't even plugged up to the bike yet. And then I'll show you what I've been working on for some of the idle and startup tune stuff. Okay, so here we have our Fuel Tech software opened up. So what I'm going to do is I want to go get that data log quick. So let's click on data logger, download. There's only one stored in the bike. It's the one I just took. So let's open that quick. If any of you have ever used like Woolix stuff or tried to get a data logger out of any of that, like Zeitronics or any of that, you might notice a difference in how much faster this gets a log out compared to that. Alright, so here's the log of that fire up. And you notice I didn't start the log until, it was my mistake. I didn't start the log until it actually was already running. My bad. Usually I'll start the log and then show cranking and everything. So the bike's already running here, and then down in this area you can see this is where I was giving it little revs. But what I'm focused on is just all of this nothingness of idle before this. We're going to look for the corrections and how bad it was, or how much it was correcting. So we'll bring our cursor in here. Sorry if you're seeing like a glare and stuff in here. It's the shop lights in the ceiling. So I don't have a better way to get you to see what I'm doing here, so just bear with me for this. But you can see the O2 correction over here was pulling 75%. Target was 5.8, and it was only able to pull it to 4.3, so it was still trying to pull more fuel to get it to that 5.8. What I'm probably going to do is I'm going to change that target a little bit, and I'm probably going to change that target to like 5.0, because it just seems to like it a little closer to richer than leaner. So I'll try 5.0, then that correction obviously won't be as much. But for starters, I'm just going to show you kind of how I go about making those adjustments. So just through this idle period here, the correction is staying the same. It's maxed out. I have my limits set right now at 75%. That's the limit that you want to eventually, you want to bring that down. You want to set your limits to, like I said, I shoot for like 10% or less. That basically means that your map is within 10% of perfect-ish, if I'm using the right terms here. So say you have an O2 sensor go bad, and you have your limits set at 100%, which means it can pull or add a crap ton of fuel. Well, if the oxygen sensor goes bad and it's giving you a false reading, it can all of a sudden just try to pull a crap ton of fuel out when it doesn't really need to. And there's your run and there's your motor. So by tightening up those control limits, you're basically only giving it a certain allowance to work of both sides of what is like your ideal base map. Could be temperature conditions, that type of thing will make it kind of compensate a little bit up or down. But right now, 75% is where I set it, because I was just trying to give it a bunch of flexibility to add or remove a ton, because I didn't know where the base map needed to be with the new fuel. So 75% seems like a lot to allow, and it is. So that's what I'm going to try to tighten up, and then we'll work from there. So there's an option up here for, you could do fuel table overlay, and then you can split the screen. If you guys follow David Ligori, he just kind of went through some of this. And actually, he's where I learned how to do any of this too. But what you can do is just scroll around, and you can see it's moving the cursor down here on your map, and it shows you where in the map it's trying to make adjustments. So if you want, you can go to and individually change those numbers. What I'm going to do to just kind of do some bulk adjusting real quick here is we will put this back to full screen. Oops. Come on now. There we go. Okay, so what I want to do is, there's an O2 correction overlay here. And what that'll do is it's showing me where it's trying to correct from what it was running at to what the base map was allowing. So that area right there is where, basically almost kind of where we saw those cursors pop up, those little circles that showed up on the map. So I'm going to do is just allow those changes for now. -20, -20. So it's trying to pull fuel in that area. So I'm going to send that to the FT manager. And if you look real close, it's hard to see, I know, because I'm doing this with the phone and I'm not zoomed in. Maybe I'll zoom in a little bit for you. You can see down here, there's 3 boxes that marked. That's where it made the change. So if you go over here, we'll make the actual graph a little bit bigger so you can kind of see what it was doing. So if you go over and click on these boxes, it highlights the area over here. Zoom back out a little bit. So you can see these changes it made down here were in this area here. So I'm going to allow those changes, and then what I'm going to do is, I'm a smoothing tuning superhero. So I'm going to take that area just kind of through here, and then just click S, smooth it out. And I did the wrong spot. Go back over so we can see better. So here we go. There. Now I can actually see my numbers and the graph. So what I'm going to do is take roughly that area that we were working on. We'll go up one more row. Somewhere in here. And we'll just smooth it. There. That's a little nicer looking. And then what I'll do is, now I will Bring this back over. I'll save that. And then we will work on some cold start where it's going to need a little more fuel. So engine temperature compensation. I'll turn the bike back on because it'll give me a live read of where the bike is actually at. I'm on engine temperature compensation now, and it's showing me right now this line right here. That's a live read of where the bike is actually at temperature wise. So somewhere between 86 and 104, leaning more towards probably around 90 degrees or so. And then when I went to start it, it was probably somewhere around the 50 degree mark over here, if you can see that. So I built a little bit of heat while it was idling. So what I'm going to do is take this one here where it starts getting up to around 104 degrees. That's probably good enough. That's about where it was starting good before. I'm just going to take these lower temp ones through here and add just a touch of fuel to these 5 blocks. So we'll bring them up to a little more there. And we'll add just a touch to this one. That should be good. And then intake air temp compensation. You can see right now it's showing the intake air temp is somewhere between 50 and 68, leaning more towards probably about probably 60-ish degrees. I can get the actual reading off if I bring the dash up. Where is it? Air temperature, yeah, 61.5 down here. So I'll close the dash. And I think I'll take these blocks here where it's really, really cold. Oops, I just want these 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Add just a touch to them. And then a little bit more to this one, but not as much. And then that should be pretty good on the cold side. You can see once temperature gets up, it's not actually compensating anything. Methanol likes a crap ton of fuel from what I'm learning. So this is what we'll try to get her to start. So I'll save this again. I'll save it as to the bike, and then I'll save it in the file. Just gonna send it to the bike. You hear the fuel pump prime, it took the map. And I will also save it in the computer here. So fuel tech maps, alcohol, save it. Yep, I'm gonna override the old one. So now this is my new, we'll say cold start map to work with. So now let's go try to start the bike again. Actually, I lied. Before we start the bike, I'll show you one thing that I was doing to help sort of get the bike running sooner. So this is the main fuel map, right? So when you change the actual fuel that you're using in the fuel tech software, so this was my gasoline, my race gas map. So when I went into the fuel tech software and I started working on an alcohol map, when I reselected that I was going to be running alcohol, it converted all of the numbers that were in this map to an alcohol scale. And then what I needed to do from that is it didn't want to fire up right away when it did that. It was close, it was trying to pop, but it wouldn't fire. So what I could do is go to, up here they give you an option for overall fuel trim. I can take the entire map and increase it by percentage. So I just kept adding fuel or subtracting fuel until the bike would fire. So say I needed to add, whatever, I could change this to say 25%. I wanted to add 25% fuel, the bike finally started. So what it would do to my main fuel table is all these numbers would be 25% higher. So once you get the bike to fire on it, what I would do is you would copy this whole fuel map. You copy it, then I'd go back to overall fuel trim, change this back to 0, go back to the fuel table. Then all my numbers would have been 25% less, but I have already saved the map 25% more. So I would just select all of that, then paste it, and then there's the map that was 25% more fuel. So that's what got me in the ballpark for getting the bike started. And now I've been working on different zones to kind of dial in, because obviously it's not going to translate over exactly, but we need to get the thing running at some point. So I just thought I'd show you that little quick trick to monkeying with an entire fuel map instead of having to just guess, add a little here and take a little there. Just move the whole map around until it fires, and then you can work on little zones after that. Trick is to get it running get it to rev, get it to go into two-step, and then we'll make short passes and data log it. But now we will go try and get the bike fired up. So now the you can see the dash is active right now just because it's plugged into the ECU. The bike's not on. So what I'll do is turn the bike on, and we'll let the oxygen sensor warm up, so I'll actually be able to hopefully remember to turn the data logger on, or we'll data log the cranking and everything this time. So that's ready to go, and then you can see we still got 15 volts. These batteries still have not been charged. So what I'll do is start the data logger, and we'll crank it. Okay. We still got to work on leaning her out a little bit, but it started up pretty freaking good. So we'll go back and go through the process again. I'll get the data log out, and we'll work on that low speed idle area to get it so it's not correcting so hard. And then actually this go around too, I'm going to change in the laptop. I'm going to change the closed loop targets for idle. I'll fatten them up a little bit, but I'll go through a little bit of that. Okay, what this is now is the O2 target table. Yeah, you can't see that up there. It says move this a little bit. O2 closed loop target table. So this is all based, it's all air fuel numbers. So what I did was I went in around the area where it's idling. I went and I richened it up just a touch, and then you can see I kind of smoothed out the overall graph over here. So it's not just big transitions. It kind of, once you make an adjustment somewhere, you kind of got to blend it in, and you know, below that and above it, you kind of got to blend that all together. So that's what I went ahead and did there. So again, we'll go ahead and save it, and then we'll send it to the bike, and we'll do another startup. And then this will be the last startup I do, and then I'll probably close out this video, because this is pretty much all I've been working on for 20-30 minutes at a time, because the garage stinks incredibly bad right now and I need to get a gas mask out here. But give you an idea of what I've been up to, and like I said, hopefully, you know, weather permitting and time permitting, we'll get the thing to the track soon. So let's get after another startup here. There we go, last fire up. Unless it's really close, then I'll spend 2 more hours out here monkeying around, poisoning myself. Okay, it's about ready. Turn the data logger on, fire it up. Oh dang it, I got a little work to do yet. Okay, last startup, I swear, and then I'm going inside because I'm dying out here. I just made a quick change. I didn't even turn the bike off, but we'll fire it up and see how she likes it. Not very much, apparently. So I got a little bit of work to do. Idle and stuff's coming around. Startup seems to be okay. Got to do a little Excel fuel enrichment tuning. Looks like it's going pretty fat as soon as I blip the gas. So I'll play with that next time, but I'm going to get out of the garage for now and go edit a video. So hope you enjoyed the newest video. So hopefully I'll be making some more and we'll get to the track soon. So we'll see you guys later.